The Architecture of the Unreal, a taxonomy of psychological adaptation. The unreal is rarely a void or a malfunction. It is a sophisticated structural response to the limitations of objective reality. When the environment becomes insufficient, demanding, or intolerable, the mind engages in psychological scaffolding, building internal structures to bridge the gaps where external reality fails. Imaginary/illusory. A phantom of the mind, an echo of something that was never there. This is the unreal at its most constructive form. The mind doesn't just misread reality, it creates something to stand in its place. What this really is. The brain cannot tolerate emptiness, gaps, or uncertainty, so it generates false memories, imagined meanings, invented narratives. It's not random, it's purposeful illusion. The deeper layer. An illusion usually forms where something is missing. Missing memory leads to confabulation. Missing meaning leads to belief systems. Missing connection leads to imagined relationships or interpretations. So the phantom isn't nothing. It's a substitute. The illusion feels real because it solves a problem the person cannot consciously solve. The danger. The person doesn't feel lost, they feel certain. Reality isn't questioned because the illusion is internally consistent. A phantom of the mind, an echo of something that was never there. This is the mind acting as an architect of presence. The human brain possesses a horror vacui, a fundamental intolerance for informational voids. When reality presents a vacuum, the mind undergoes confabulation, a process of generating narrative filler to maintain a cohesive worldview. The compensatory mechanism. The illusion is not a lie, it is a surrogate truth. It emerges at the precise coordinates where memory, meaning, or connection has collapsed. Internal consistency. These illusions are dangerous specifically because they are internally validated. The mind cross-references the phantom against its own needs, creating a closed-loop logic that renders external correction impossible. The function. It provides certainty. In the hierarchy of human needs, a false map is often prioritized over no map at all. Artificial/insincere. The mask, polished surfaces hiding hollow cores. This is not about false reality, it's about false expression. What this really is. The real self is still there, but it becomes buried under performance. The person is no longer asking, "What do I feel?" They are asking, "What should I be here?" The deeper mechanism. Over time, actions are chosen for approval, image, or expectation, not for truth or authenticity. This creates a split. Outer self, controlled, polished, presentable. Inner self, distant, unclear, sometimes unknown. Why it feels hollow. Because meaning comes from alignment between inner reality and outer behavior. When that alignment breaks, even success feels empty. Even connection feels staged. It's not that nothing is happening, it's that nothing feels owned. The mask, polished surfaces hiding hollow cores. This is the mind acting as a curator of identity. Unlike the imaginary, which fills a gap, the artificial replaces a core. It is a survival-based divergence between the phenomenological self, who we are, and the performative self, who we must be to remain viable. The identity split. Over time, the performance consumes the persona. The individual stops asking, "What is my truth?" and begins calculating what is the required frequency for this environment. Ontological inauthenticity. This leads to a state of alienation. Because the actions are not owned by the inner self, the rewards of those actions, praise, success, love, cannot be digested. They slide off the mask, leaving the core malnourished. The function. It provides social safety. The mask is a shield that allows the fragile inner self to exist behind a barrier of flawless, albeit hollow, execution. Surreal/dreamlike. When reality bends and you can't tell if you're awake, this is the unreal at the level of perception itself. What this really is, the world is still real, but the brain's sense of realness is disrupted. It's like the lighting is wrong, the timing is off, the emotional weight of things disappears. The deeper experience. Familiar things feel unfamiliar. You recognize everything, but it feels stage-like or distant. You exist, but you feel separate from your own existence. It's not illusion, it's disconnection. Why it happens. This state often appears when reality feels overwhelming. The mind needs to create distance without losing function. So instead of changing reality, it changes how real reality feels. When reality bends and you can't tell if you're awake. This is the mind acting as a governor of intensity. This is not a failure of logic, but a failure of salience. The world remains physically intact, but the feeling of its reality, the weight of existence, is computationally dampened. Derealization as defense. When reality becomes too loud or traumatic, the mind engages in dissociative filtering. It dials down the realness index. You recognize the chair, the room, and the person, but they lack affective resonance. They feel like props on a stage. The uncanny valley of the self. This state creates a liminal space where the individual feels like a spectator in their own life. It is the sensory equivalent of viewing the world through a thick pane of glass. The function? It provides distance. By thinning the texture of reality, the mind creates a buffer zone that prevents emotional or sensory overload from shattering the ego. The hidden connection between all three. These aren't separate. They are different strategies for handling strain on reality. Type. What the mind struggles with. What it does instead. Imaginary gaps in reality fills them with invention. Artificial pressure to be something replaces self with performance. Surreal. Overwhelming reality disconnects from feeling it. These three states are neuroadaptive strategies for navigating existential strain. They represent the mind's effort to maintain equilibrium when the burden of objective reality exceeds its capacity. Category. The catalyst, the strain. The response, the unreal. The resulting state. Imaginary gaps/uncertainty. Invention. Intellectual certainty. Artificial social pressure/threat. Performance, functional viability, surreal trauma/overwhelm, detachment, emotional preservation. The core insight. All three forms of the unreal are not failures. They are adaptations. They are the mind trying to answer one question. How do I keep going when reality, identity, or meaning stops making sense? If reality has gaps, it invents. If self feels unsafe, it performs. If reality is too intense, it detaches. The unreal is not the real, it detaches. The unreal is not the antithesis of reality. It is the adaptive filter through which we survive it. We do not live in the world as it is. We live in the world as our minds have rendered it. When reality becomes too incomplete, the mind fills it. When it becomes too dangerous, the mind masks it. When it becomes too heavy, the mind ghosts it. The phantom isn't a symptom of being lost. It is the very thing that allows the mind to keep walking through the dark. Final thought. Your idea, sharpened. The unreal is not the absence of reality. It is what the mind builds when reality becomes too incomplete, too demanding, or too overwhelming to face directly. And when it gets someone, it doesn't erase their world. It replaces, filters, or distances it just enough for them to continue existing inside it.